Chillin'? Chillin' like a villain. Oh, chillin' like a villain. You got your Ram sticks today. Just received my Ram. Oh, nice. Is that for your oh yeah, go ahead, record. Go ahead. Go ahead. Somebody just got their Ram sticks today. Nice. Is that for your laptop or your desktop at home? I think that your RAMs that I think it's for your desktop, right? Is that for your desktop? Oh, for your laptop? Okay, so you're upgrading from 16 to 32 then? Guessing from 16 to 32. Woo! 32 to 64. Let's go. Money, money. Let's go, money. How much was it? How much was it? Oh, okay. That's not bad. That's not bad. Nice. Nice, 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 nice. All right, let me share my screen. Let me share my screen. Let's see what we have scheduled for today. Isn't like that. That's weird. There's like a okay, let me fix this really quick. So look, don't worry about it. Let me fix this. Like it's so weird. Why is it like that? So the document design requirements is 2 pages, but there is a page in between that's blank. So I gotta fix that really quick. It's just a format thing. Where's the capstone? I think it's the same one. I already have it here. So then why is the okay? Replace the file at the destination. Give me a second. I have a class end. Right. Let me see. Um, let's see here. Is it? Why is it? It's weird. Okay, let's just upload that anyways. Let's see what happens. Maybe it's Brightspace the way it displays it. I guess. Let's upload it. Oh. Yeah, it's Brightspace the way it displays that on Firmware. That's so weird. Okay, whatever. Let's just keep it then. We'll keep it as is and then see what happens. Um, yeah, those are 3 subnets, logical, yada, yada, yada. Okay. Let's try. We'll try. Change file, upload. Yeah, this one. Update, override. So is it going to be, let me share my screen too, just so we can all witness this process. And I'm not losing it. Yeah, it is still like it's doing it. Like this is a bright space thing. Okay, whatever. Let me just share my screen. Share my screen. Here we go. You guys can see that? You guys can see that? All good? Yeah? Yeah, okay. Let's go back to the table of content. My screen is very blurry. I don't know what happened. I need to fix a few things because it's connected to my laptop, right? I have this is like a sort of an extension to my display on my laptop. So I need to go on. The resolution is okay. I don't know what's going on. It's a little bit blurry for me. It has to do with the power option. I'll look at that later. Okay, so yours is cleared? Oh, it's clear. Okay, good, good. That's good. As long as it's clear on your end, that's amazing. Slightly blurry, not too much, but it's okay. So what we have scheduled for today is the network diagram. So that's what we're going to look at today. You will be spending a little bit time on that just to make sure that you got it going and it's all fits your fits the commitment that you made in your project charter. So remember the milestones in your project charter? You have to now sort of provide a diagram to show how you're going to implement that. Okay, I'll show you some samples just so you guys know how to do things. You'll have to download Visio. So go to DevTools. Do you guys have access to DevTools? You guys have access to DevTools? Let me post the link here on in the chat. Hold on, just give me a second. Let me post the link in the chat just so you guys have access to it. And then you can download DevTools and install Visio on your computer. What is that? Just give me a second. Can't send me the link, I remember. So I think we did post it in the chat before, but there we go. Download this. Yep. There we go. That's the link right there. So copy. Let me paste it here in the chat. Oh, I got my own keyboard. Hold on. Paste. There we go. So go to DevTools, log in with your student account, and then on the left, click on Software and look for Visio. Okay. Let me go back to sharing my screen. It will take some time, so just so you guys know. Hold on, let me go back. Sharing. Here we go. Share this. Here we go. You guys can see that. Perfect. So just so you know, we're going to do the network diagram. That will stretch for next week for the next two classes as well. You're going to have to finalize your diagram on Thursday and then submit it because we're going to start the project schedule. Okay. So keep that in mind. The diagram, so let's look at the network diagram. So we're going to look at the requirements for the network diagram, and we'll also look at some samples because for the network diagram, we have to make two submissions, okay? So let's go back to the table of content, go to the planning, So we've completed the first phase, which is the initiation phase. Now let's look at the planning. Remember, I'm still updating the rest of the documents. Just open up the first one, which says network and AD design requirement. That's the one you need to open up. And then you only need to make the network submission for the network diagram, 2 submissions, 2 Visio files. Okay. So for those who are copy this. Let's see, let's put the link down here. Let's go to Azure. So here we go, we log in. And then on the left, because I already signed into Brightspace, so it uses single sign-on. See here on your left now, I will click on learning resources and then I click on software. And then in here, just type Visio. So just type Visio, go Visio 2021, 2019 if you want, it doesn't matter, it's all the same. So as soon as you click on it, you can see down here, you can click on download, down to the right, you click on download, and then you click on view key to look at the key. Because it'll ask you after the installation is done, as soon as you open up Visio, it'll ask you to add the key. So make sure you get the key as well, okay? Save it in a text file, don't just save it in your clipboard. Like in the buffer, don't save it in your buffer, save it in a text file. So this will take a little bit of time for you guys to download because I think it's 6 gig, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So you can do that on your home network if you have a good bandwidth there. So that's Visio. As soon as you're done with Visio, you're going to come back to Brightspace. We're going to go through the first document. So let's go through the first document and then look at some samples. So I'm going to show you guys some samples. I'm not supposed to show you samples, but I'm going to show you samples anyways, just so you know what you're expected to do, right? And there is a little bit of less of troubleshooting when we are doing the review on the 27th, okay? I think there is somebody at my place. Oh yeah, I have a technician coming to install my new dryer. Like washer dryer. I bought a washer dryer combo, so he's here to do the installation for me. Give me a minute. Let me just show him where it is, and then let him work, and then I'll come back. Just give me a minute. Who's here? Yeah. That was interesting. Okay, sorry guys. So let's download this document. Because if you look at it here, like it leaves a space. I don't know why it does that. Huh. Let's open up this guy. Bring it up over here. And you see, like it's just 2 pages in here, but in Brightspace it's like 3 pages. So weird. Okay. Yeah, that was exactly what was happening. Yep. That's exactly what was happening. Oh yeah. So I ordered like a washer dryer combo, and I ordered it with like a sidekick, like so sort of an extension to it. So they gave me the wrong color for the extension. It sort of sits in the bottom of the washer dryer, and so we called, they just delivered the right color, and they said, oh, they're going to deliver and install. Those guys just delivered without installing. I'm like, are you guys not installing this? He's like, no, somebody else is going to come and install it. This issue's been going on with the bricks for since the 30th of August. No, it was the bricks since the 30th of August. They kept on switching my dates for bringing, and so what I did with the old washer dryer, I gave it to one of my relatives. They wanted it, so I said, like, oh, sure, take it. They're gonna come on the 30th anyway and install it. I called on the 30th. There's like, no, we rescheduled you guys for the 4th of September. I'm like, how come nobody called me? What's going on here? I called the 4th of September. They said, no, you guys also got rescheduled until the 7th of September. I was like, you guys playing games with me or what's going on? Like, how come nobody's telling me what's going on here? Like you are rescheduling without letting the client know, and the whole thing is paid in full, hey? So I paid for everything. And then, of course, when the guys came in, they came in with the washer dryer combo. They installed it for me, but they didn't install the Sidekick that I ordered. They gave me the wrong color. Now they delivered the right color. Now they said someone else is going to come and install it for you. A plumber is going to come and install it for you. I'm like, okay. This thing has been dragging on for so long. Like it's been 2 weeks now. That's the bricks. Lovely. Anyway, moving on. Um, so this is the requirement for making the network design. And so what we have to do, there are two designs that we have to do. Let's go through the document, and then I'll show you like a sample, and then we'll do some drawing together as well, like a rough sketch. We'll do a rough sketch together. All right, so network design requirements. Remember, those are two things you have to do, two designs. The first design is the physical network design. The other one is your logical Active Directory design. And it says over here for the objective, you need to create a network design diagram that includes 3 subnets connected through a router. The diagram should be clear and accurate and include appropriate IP configuration of IP addresses, subnet masks, and naming conventions. So which means when you are making those 3 subnets in Visio, when you're creating those servers, like you can see the icons and Visio, you can just drag and drop into your design. When you're putting the labels for your servers, you have to include the IP. You have to include the subnet. You also have to include the computer name. So that's the naming convention. The computer name, you have to include it in there, right? For if it's a domain controller, typically you'll call it DC01, DC02, something like that, right? So you have to include your naming convention as well. So you have to make a decision, the name of the domain. You have to make a decision on naming conventions. IPs and subnets, we'll go through them. There's an Excel sheet here on Brightspace that we're going to go through. And just so you know, what are your IPs and subnets that are relevant to you. So students, you guys don't have the same IP and subnet. It's all different. All right. Consider designing your network diagram using below criteria. So the first one is the diagram creation. Design a digital network diagram that includes 3 subnets. So in your diagram, you must have 3 subnets. Connect the subnets using a router. So what does that tell you? So if you just go through a sketch really quick here, and then I'll show you the sample. Just give me a second. So if I open up Microsoft Paint, which is the poor man's whiteboard, because I'm poor, if we are doing the design, this is what you really have to do. Let's go through a brush. So this is a subnet. That's subnet 1. This is subnet 2. This is subnet 3. So there are 3 subnets. Okay, and those subnets must be connected through a router. So there's a router here in the middle. So this is a router. So you'll see a router for this subnet. And so one of the interfaces for this subnet, one of the interfaces for this subnet, and the third interface for the subnet. The fourth interface is for the internet. Okay, so this is what you have to do. So this is going to be the internet. Okay, and so what happens in each subnet, you're going to have a subnet so it's different for each student. If I go to, for example, we'll come back to this document shortly. If I go to, for example, to Brightspace and I open up, go to the project documents, and you'll see something called subnets. So this is an Excel sheet. Let me click on that and then download it. Let's download that guy and then open it up. And then you'll see your names over here. So you'll see your names over here and each student has 3 different subnets. You can see them right here. So Osama has those 3 subnets. You can see like Tobias has those 3 subnets. Eric, you have those 3 subnets. You have to use those subnets. It's not optional. Okay. So let's pick, here we go, Mason. Mason, we're going to use 10.204.49. We'll start with 49. So back to my diagram. So we say this is going to be 10. Oh, font is a little bit big. 10, oh, 24. 10.204.49 dot x/24, right? So that is your subnet in here. Right? So that's your subnet in here. And this subnet is, for example, for Edmonton. I'll fix that. Give me a second. So this is your Edmonton subnet. And this one is going to be 10.204.50.x/24. And this is, for example, in Calgary. Okay. Whatever it is. Hold on. So that is your subnet in here. And this one is 10.204.51.x/24, and this is in Red Deer. Okay, so that is the subnet over here. So what does that tell you now? That tells you that you have an IP address. You have how many IP addresses you have on the router? You will have a total of 3 static IPs you have to add on the router. And so what happens here on the router, you'll have 10.204.49.1. So that's for this interface, right? That's for this interface. And then for this interface, it's going to be 10.204.50.1. So the first IP usually goes to the router, right? That's the default gateway. I shouldn't say a router because a router may have multiple default gateways, right? So you go to the first IP goes to the default gateway, and then this one is 10.204.51.1. Okay. Now, what happens? What IP address do you get on that interface? This is a NAT interface, the one that's seeing the internet. This is going to be your NAT interface. Okay, so now you know the router is going to have how many IPs. And so now what you need to do, you need to have your servers now in here. Oops. So let's draw servers. So this is example for, this is your domain controller. So it tells you you need 3 sites, and for each site you need a domain controller, at least one domain controller, right? So let's draw that. Okay, let's draw this as well. So that's your domain controller right there. And so what do you need to type here as some of the information that you need to type over here? Let's maybe go a little bit smaller font, just so we have room. So this is going to be 10.204. Oh, dude. 10.204.49.2. Now, so you start with 2, right? Because the 1 is already given to the default gateway. So that's 2/24. You can write it 24, or you could do something like this. Or you could do 255.255.255.0, like whatever you want. Now you need to write the name of the server, like the computer name. So this is going to be dc01.batman.com. I guess it's the hosting company here. I'm going to call it Batman. So you write the fully qualified domain name. So that's your naming convention. So that's your first server right there. Remember, you'll have another server in there. You may, because you'll have your certificate services running in there too, right? So then in this case, you may have another server. So in this, there's another server over here. And then you keep going with the same idea. You write down the IP address, 10.204.49.3. You can write it /24, or you can write the subnet mask directly, like 255.255. So it depends if you want to use shortcuts or not. How big do you want your diagram to look? How messy do you want your diagram to look? So you may choose to do it something like this. It's up to you. It doesn't matter. You may choose the CIDR notations or just write down the MAC addresses traditionally. And of course, you want the computer name over here. So you want to call it hello? Keyboard, please respond. Thank you. So CA, for example, 01, that's your certificate server, .batman.com. Okay, so that's That's the naming convention for the second server. So you want to go on to this server. So this one now, the IP address is 10.204.50.2 because 1 is reserved for the default gateway. Okay, so you may go /24, and then this is what's the computer name. So this is going to be, for example, dc02.spiderman.com. Oops. Spiderman.com. So you may just to do it that way. All right. And then, of course, finally, this is, again, you'll be adding a lot of servers, right? Depending on all the requirements. So go back to the requirements and find out how many servers and where do you want to place them, right? You also have to do DFS. So remember, this thing is, one thing you also need to add in here is that what service is it running? So this is a DC01. So it's running an Active Directory services. It's also running DNS because DNS is integrated with Active Directory, right? Plus DNS plus DFS, right? So you have to write down the name of the service that is running on the server. So you have to write down also the name of the service that is running on the server. Cool. And for here, you also have to write down the default gateway. So this one, so you know that the default gateway is 10.204.50.1, just so it's clear for everybody. Same thing here, 10.204.49.1. So that's your default gateway, right? So just so it's clear, everybody, when they're reading the diagram, it's clear for everybody what is a default gateway. That's the same thing goes over here. Of course, you put first the IP address. You put the default gateway, and then you put the site name, like the location. Okay. Normally you have to do IP, default gateway, site location, but because of space, so I'm just writing this 10.204.51.1, and that is the default gateway. Yes. Okay, so like I said, so you have to specify what services they are running. So whatever servers you are adding into your Visio diagram, you need to specify the servers. You need to add the IP address, the subnet mask. You need to add the naming convention for that server and what services they're running. So 4 things you need to add in there. So just keep that in mind. Of course, you'll have eventually your sites, all those 3 boxes will be populated with a lot of information, right? So that's the idea. And what you want to do as well, just for the reader, right? You want to add something called a legend over here. So there's like one small box that then explains what is this. So you say, for example, this is a router, right? Those ones in there are considered servers because you'll also have workstations. Remember, you have a client too, right? So those are considered servers. And then you'll have, for example, a laptop. This is considered a client. So you need to explain that. Like explanation of those images that you're using, like the objects. You need to explain it. So this is called a legend. Legend. Yep. So that's it. So this is called a legend. So you need to explain all of that. So this is what you need to include in your diagram. I'll show you a sample here as well, just so you guys have an idea of what that looks like. Just so back to the requirements of the document. So again, you need to design network diagrams that includes 3 subnets. Those are the 3 boxes, the 3 physical locations. So that's what you need to do. They are connected using a router. So they connect to each other using a router. And then you want to ensure that all network devices such as servers, clients are appropriately included and labeled. So that's the label, the IP, subnet, naming convention, and service that is running. Each device must have an IP, computer name, IP address, and functional services labeled. Okay, assign appropriate IP addresses and subnets to each subnet based on the spreadsheet provided by the instructor. And this is the spreadsheet that I'm talking about right here. Okay, so that's the spreadsheet that you'll find it under project documents. You'll see something called subnets. That's where you'll find the spreadsheets. You have to use those subnets that are relevant to you. Okay, don't use someone else's subnet. I'm going to hold you accountable to this, so just be careful. Indicate the IP range for each subnet in the diagram. So that's we included. Configure the router to ensure connectivity between 3 subnets. Yes, so you have to add the label, right? The label on the router must show the default gateway for each subnet, which we have already done. So we show the default gateway. We already said which subnet is going to have what's the range for each subnet. We also show the default gateway. Okay. The NAT interface must be clearly indicated, and that's available right here. This is the NAT interface. Okay. So what does that mean when you're building your router? How many interfaces you need? 4 interfaces when you're building your router. So if you're using somebody's using pfSense, somebody may use OpenSense. So keep that in mind. That's another technology that's available: pfSense, OpenSense, or you can. The easiest one is Windows LAN routing services. That's the easiest one to implement. It's very easy. If you YouTube it, within 3 minutes you'll be up and running. For the others, you may have to spend like more than 15 minutes or 20 minutes just to get it going. Something else. So if I open up VMware, come on, VMware. Thank you for showing up. Dude, I need to format this laptop. It's ridiculous, super slow. Loaded with so much software, dude. It's just annoying. Okay, so when you're building your virtual machine, remember, hey, let's go through the process of building a virtual machine. Okay, virtual machine, just so I can, anytime now. Oh, sorry, typical. I will install the OS later. Sure, Windows server. I'm going to do Windows LAN routing, right? So I'm going to call this a router. Router. And then I'm going to just put my image in like a new folder called, so this one is called test2. Test2. Okay, just call it that. So yep, it's going to get installed over there. Perfect. Sure. And then go finish. And then in here, you can start customizing now. When it shows up in here, go click edit, start customizing your VM, because you need to add the ISO, you need to do other things, right? So in here, how many network interfaces? So that's NAT. Start adding other network interfaces here. Go add, network, finish. So this is the second network interface. Add, network, and then finish. That's a third network interface. This is for the router. This is what you have to do for the router. Add, okay, let's plug it in here. Computer is complaining. Sure, let's plug it in here. There we go. And so we have 3 interfaces. Go add again. And then you go network, finish. And that is your 4th interface right there. For each interface, it must belong. So the first one is NAT, but the second ones after that, they cannot be NAT. You have to build a VMNet for them. So what do you have to do? We are recording all of this, right? Perfect. So go OK. You have to go build VMNets now. So go virtual network editor. Bring this up over here. Go change settings. Click on yes. Hold on, let it load. Okay, we're loading now. So what we have to do now for the other subnets, like if I go back to this diagram, so what you're really doing is between this interface of this router and then this entire subnet be, for example, on VMNet, will be on VMNet for example, go 08, whatever. Just an example. Okay, let's pick another color. Let's go green. And what we're going to do, we're going to say this interface on the router, and then this subnet will be on another VMnet. Will not be on 8, will be on 9, for example. So then you say here, this is going to be VMnet 09. Cool. And then you finally, let's pick, for example, blue. Let's go blue. We're going to say this interface on the router, and then this entire subnet will be on VMnet VMnet 10, for example. Okay, so they are all have different VMnets for all of them, different VMnets in VMware. You have to do that in VMware. And so they all, so the router has a NAT, and the other three interfaces, each interface belongs to a different VMnet, which acts as a default gateway for that subnet. Okay? So they all, through that VMnet, talk to the router takes them to the internet through the net, using NAT, takes them to the internet. Make sense, guys? Make sense? Which means you have to make the configuration in VMnet. This happens quite a lot. People, students will say, oh, both servers are on the same subnet, they cannot ping each other. Yeah, because one of them is another VMnet and the other one is in something like, they have to be in the same VMnet so that they can ping each other, right? So make sure you know that. Make sure you know that when you're making that configuration in VMnet. So if you go back to VMnet, you can start creating them. So NAT for me is VMnet 8. We don't want to do that in this situation. So we can change it. We can say, if you want to add a network, another VMnet, just say add network. What is not taken here? We have VMnet, so we have VMnet 8. We have let's add VMnet 2 for NAT. Unfortunately here, only one of the VMnets can be NAT. This is the limitation for VMware, has that limitation. So VMnet 2 will be NAT. So it says, yo, you already have a NAT. I'm going to say, okay, fine, make this host and make this NAT. Just go apply. And then, of course, as you're applying, it will take some time, so just be patient with it. Okay, so what does that tell you now? So VMnet 2 is, that's your NAT, right? So, okay, leave my NAT, everything is good, but VMnet 8, what's the IP address here? 10.204, so change this then. 10.204. Why is it not? Yo, what's going on right now? Okay, my keyboard is, huh? What's going on with my keyboard? Why isn't it working with me? What's going on? Okay, let's go here. 204 dot, what is it? So VMnet 8 is 50, right? So write 50 dot, so because you are going to start giving IP addresses in here from your DHCP, so you may use only the first 5 IPs, so you start giving IPs after that, because VMnet has its own DHCP too. Okay, so VMnet has its own DHCP. You can say 10.204. You know what? Just do it as 1. Sure. Start with 2. Don't do 1 because that's your VMnet for the router. 50.254. Yeah, I know, because I'm trying to change it, dude. That's what I'm trying to do. It's not letting me. VMnet. Jesus. Oh my God. I think there's something wrong with my keyboard, isn't it? Is there something wrong with my keyboard? So if I do 204, see, it won't like it. Doesn't like it. So what you can do, you know what? Honestly, just say remove DHCP. It doesn't matter. You can say connect through a virtual network adapter. So here, what you can do, just go host only. So just go host only. You can just remove everything from here and just go OK. So because it won't matter, honestly, I don't. This is because you can say use local DHCP service. You can specify the subnet. If you guys don't, if you guys don't have that issue on your computer, because it doesn't matter. No. So okay, I'm using this little keyboard. It's so tiny. There is a lot of built-in functions in them that just don't like it when I press certain numbers. I have to disable it is what I have to do. To do that, I have to download the driver. And I just formatted, sorry, I need to format my laptop anyways and do that. Assuming it is 204, let's just make that assumption. 50.0 and then 255.255. See, it doesn't like it. Like it doesn't like. There are some functions on my keyboard. I can't go more than 2 numbers. There are some functions on my keyboard. I can't make it work. Okay, but you guys get the idea. So you have to specify your subnet in here that matches whatever you see on your network and your diagram in here. When you do that, make sure you're connected to the same VMnet when you're deploying your servers. Okay, make sure you're connected to the same VMnet when you're deploying your servers. Let me try. Nope, I have the same issue. Yep, I have an issue. I need to download the driver. Yeah, I need to download the driver and disable the functions. I have this issue on my keyboard. Yep. Um, don't do that. No, don't take control. But anyway, so what you have to do, this is the setup that you have to do on your router. You have to change your router to make sure. So use the VMnets that you guys are not using in other courses. So you'll see a list. If I say add network adapter, you'll see VMnets. There's like a long list in here. Use the one that are not used in other courses in your term 4. Okay, so just keep that in mind. If you guys are using in Matt's class or in Kent's class, you guys are using, for example, VMnet 5 or 6, then don't use 5 and 6. Use other ones. So just make sure that your NAT interface is in one of the VMnets. Like it's really on its own VMnet, the your NAT interface. Um, so you need to do that on your router. So that's what you have to do. So back to the document, just to keep going. The NAT interface must be clearly identified. The connection between the subnets and the router must be labeled correctly. Ensure that the diagram shows a clear and accurate reflection of all interfaces on the router and the internet. So we already have that. Documentation, provide a detailed physical network design and logical Active Directory design. So the diagram that we did, that's the physical design. What about the Active Directory logical design? I'll show you guys samples, but just to really go through this quickly, we really have an Active Directory design. Oh, sorry. So we have 2 designs over here. And then we have a child domain for the second for the second tree, right? Because they're all part of the same forest, right? They're all part of the same forest. This is all the same forest, right? They're all part of the same forest, except this one is like a tree, and those ones are acting as a second tree in the same forest, okay? So, and you guys know that already from Active Directory. In your forest, you can have multiple trees, and each tree has its own namespace, right? You can do that. And the only related thing shared between them is the schema partition. So I'm sure you guys have gone through that when you are doing .com. This is going to be spiderman.com. I hate this keyboard. So small. It fits my desk though. And then this one's called learning.spiderman.com, right? So that is what we know for this domain. So that's what we know, right? And so what you need to do, you also need to show that let's use this. You need to show that there is trust relationship between those two, right? Sorry. You have a line from here to here, and then you have a line from here to here, right? And so that line now, you can type over here, trust relationship. Trust relationship. So we have a trust relationship, okay? So this is your logical Active Directory design. Just so if somebody looks at the network design, and of course, so what we have here, because we made things really simple, for us in the other capstone groups, it was slightly different, but this is what it looks like to you guys. So we have two servers in here. Sorry, we have one domain controller over here. We have one domain controller over here, and then we have one domain controller over here. The minimum we need to do from a standard point of view is have two domain controllers in each of those domains for redundancy purposes. If one goes down, the other one takes over. That's fine. But because we don't have the RAM resources on our computer, we just use one, right? For the purpose of this project, we just use one because we want to use the rest of the RAM to do other things, right? And so what happens, each of those different domain controllers is in a different subnet, all right? So when somebody sees this, they may say, oh, all of three of them are in the same network. But if you look at the physical design, then they will know that they are all in different subnets. They're in different networks, right? Connected through a router. So that's, so this is, you'll show your Active Directory design. What happens in here is, again, I'm just trying to, just for explanation purposes. Now you don't need to add your domain controller. What you need to do, don't add your domain controller in there because that's already shown in the physical network diagram. But what you need to add in here is your OU layout, the layout of your OU, which is already in the business case. Go back to the business case, you'll see the layout in there. So then if you go back to the business case, let's go back to the course page. Go to project documents, go to business case. You can see it right there, right here. There we go. That's the OU for the hosting company. So which means if you want to show that in the diagram, this is what you have to do. So I have sales, which means this is what you have to do. So you say, I have an OU called sales. And then after that, what do I have? I have human resources, finance, IT. Okay, so go back here. You can say human resources. So now you have another one in here called human resources, another one called finance, and then another one called IT, right? And then another one called executive staff. And now under finance, if there is more, so what do you do here? You make a line and you say there are two sub OUs in here. There are two sub OUs. So you have to show sort of the OU structure for each of those domains. inside that triangle. Okay, you have to show your OU structure. Okay, so that's the logical design of Active Directory. And then, of course, you have the physical design, which shows you sort of the physical layout, right? So this is the logical AD design. Let's go through the document really quick, and then I'll show you a sample. Do we have a question here? It says, do we have to type the names as well, or just the layout? In which one? Like no, you have to type the names of the OUs. Yes, you have to do. You have to do the names as well. So here you type, here, you type sales. What's going on with my keyboard? Dude, Bluetooth keyboards suck. Like there's a bit of a lag there. Okay, so you go sales. So that's my first OU. Second OU was human resources. Sorry. HR. See, like it just laggy. The keyboard is just laggy. And then this one is finance. We bring it up a little bit. So this is finance. And under finance, we have account payable and then account receivable. Account receivable, we have that in here. So you have to label them. Of course, you have to label them for sure. So you have to do that in your AD design. Keychron is a good option for Bluetooth keyboard. Okay. Well, look at that. What else I had? Because I just wanted one keyboard to switch between my computer and my laptop, right? Convenient for me. So my computer has a dongle. And of course, my keyboard has, like, you'll see options on my keyboard here that are some specific keys that can switch between my wireless, my 2.4 wireless dongle or Bluetooth, right? Same thing with my mouse. And the bottom, there's a button here to switch between them. So when it's on Bluetooth, when it's on connected to the dongle, it's perfect. When I switch it to Bluetooth to my laptop, it's just lag and other things. Anyway, moving on. This is your Active Directory layout. Let me go through the document, finish it up, and then open up some samples, right? Where is the document? So we want to explain how the network devices and topology contribute to the overall network design using legends. Okay, so we talked about the legends explains what are those pictures are, right? Which is one for the server, one for the network, one for the client. Submission, a network design in Microsoft Visio format. Submit your assignment, that is your physical design and logical AD design on Brightspace. The instructor will demonstrate the physical and logical design during the scheduled class time. Okay, so let's go through a sample and then we can answer your questions. How does that sound? Give me a second because I need to go to Nim Nim Nim. Nim Nim Nim. I need to go to Moodle. I have some samples in there. All right, let's see. I mean, it's not that hard, right? It's quite easy. So that's why I've given you guys a little bit of time just to finish both diagrams. So let's look at this. Let's see here. Let's see. There. Open this up. Let's look at this. Logical AD design. Okay. Lets me open up the physical design. Okay. So this is, for example, from one of the submissions of students. Let me share my screen again. There we go. So this is the physical network design. That's again, so they have 4 sites. You guys don't have 4 sites. You only have 3. But to show you like, what does that look like really in Visio? So here's, you can see it on Visio. I've done. So they have the label of the site, the subnet, the default gateway, and the location. And then you have the naming convention and the IP address in here. So if you add the subnet on top, because you added the subnet on top, then you don't have to specify it down here. If it's not specified, so if it's not specified on top, then you have to specify it on each host. Okay. So just so you know, and also the services. So you see this is running ADDS. This is running root CA. This is running sub CA. This is a SharePoint. And the naming and the computer name for each one of them is labeled right there. You can see the computer name is right there. And this is, for example, a Windows 10. This is a client test. You can see the router over here. You can see all the interfaces on the router. Again, this has 4. For you guys, it's only 3. This is 4. The one that I'm showing you is 4. But for you guys, remember, it's only 3 sites. Okay. It's not 4 for you guys. It's just 3. So this is really what it looks like. Your design looks like. Again, this is your Active Directory. This is Linux lookup. Again, computer name, service, and IP address. You don't need to add the subnet mask if the subnet mask is identified in the top here. You see this? It's already identified here. The subnet mask is already identified in the label for the site, so then you don't have to specify it on each server. Down here again, site 3, and then finally site 4. So you can see the setup that they had. Okay, so this is their physical site, the physical design. Of course, there are other designs. I can show you other designs as well, but let me show you the logical design first. Logical design is right here. So this is the logical design. Again, you'll see that there are 3 domains, right? 3 domains. Somebody added the domain controllers in there as well. You don't have to do that. So you just specify the OU structure. You specify the OU structure, and somebody also added like groups in here as well. You don't have to do that. This is in fact a draft. This is not their final submission. This was a draft. Their final submission was on, we saw it on Teams. They made the final submission on Teams, but this is just their first draft that they made. We can look at other samples. Do you guys want to see other samples? If you guys want to see other samples, we can see other samples too. Yeah, okay, let's look at other samples. So this is one of the other groups. So let's see what they had. Okay, so this is their OU design. Again, this is not the final design because really what they have to do is make sure it is all aligned. Oh, hold on. This one is all aligned with each other. And then if there are sub OUs, then you have to make another line and put the sub OUs, right? So it tells you under IT, those are all the groups, for example, in IT. But you don't have to specify the domain controllers up here. Like you don't need to do that. Others are just adding it just for looks of it, looks of the diagram. And there is a legend that says this is the domain controller. Those are organizational units. Those are groups. So this is again physical design. Sorry, logical AD design, physical design. Let's open up a physical design. Let's see what these guys did. Remember, this is all a draft. They show me the final submission on Teams, right? So So we had issues with Moodle in the past. And so this is again another sample. Let's go through each site. So it tells you here they had SharePoint, root CA, sub CA, and Active Directory. So you can see the name of the service, the computer name, and then the IP address. Let me zoom in a little bit more better here. Or for you guys who are viewing this remotely, they call the first domain Sammy's World. So it was sammysworld.com. Those guys are funny. And then, of course, they specify the subnet and the default gateway and then the location, right? Because they specify the subnet on the label of that site, they don't have to specify it for every host. You don't have to do that. Okay, so it tells you this is an Ethernet connection over here. You don't have to specify an Ethernet connection because really it won't be Ethernet. It will be an MPLS connection, like through a WAN link, but okay. So when we were doing the review, we had to correct some of those things, right? And you can see over here, it tells you Ethernet 0, Ethernet 1, 2, 3, and 4. Again, this is for the group implementation. They were doing group work. Theirs was a little bit more complicated. And so every site in the group work was like on a different laptop is what we did. And then, of course, all those laptops, which is all those sites are connected to one, to like a switch, right? And the router was a virtual router. So that's what I'm saying. The setup was a little bit complicated. Yours will be a lot easier because you do everything virtually in VMware, right? Just to be clear, if you guys want to do it in VMware or Hyper-V, whichever one you feel comfortable with doing for your project, go for it. It doesn't matter. Again, just going through the same thing. Second site, same thing with explanation of all the services running, the IP address, and the host name. Site number 3, site number 4, and then of course there is a legend over here that explains what are those acronyms. So this guy did something cool. He said, oh, ADDS actually means Active Directory Services. WDS, that's what it means. DFS, that's what it means. So if somebody's reading the diagram, then they know what services are running across all those servers, right? So this is the physical layout. We saw the logical AD design. Again, of course, students were working on a group, and that's what we have done, what they have done for their project. Theirs was a little bit more complicated, right? Okay, questions for me. Let's do that. Questions for me. Anybody? Questions for me? Remember, you need to download Visio. Don't forget the key. Install Visio on your computer. Remember, Visio will download as an ISO file. Right-click on the ISO file and say Mount. It will mount it for you. And then you go in there and then double-click on the setup and then start the installation. Okay? So that's what you have to do. When you finish the installation, add your key. You'll have Visio completely installed on your computer. Then you start your design based on the samples that we have seen and the sketch that we did, right? So that's your physical design, and then you do your logical design. So two deliverables you have to make for the design, just to be clear. 2 deliverables. Questions for me, anybody? We are recording this, right? Yeah, we are. Perfect. Just so it's all clear for everybody if they want to listen to it later, so it's all clear. For the most part, then, our first subnet will all be simple to each other, no matter what type of deployment we choose. Yeah, I would say so. So it's all going to come down to where do you want to add your Linux application, for example, or if you choose to do this in SharePoint, where you want to add your SharePoint, like which site. But you'll see a lot of commonalities between your network designs. Yes, there'll be a lot of common stuff, of course. The DFS will be on your DC, yeah, because you won't have room to put it on another server. So in the previous capstones, they were in a dedicated server, but for you guys, it will be on DC. Which also makes it easier, by the way, if you do it on your DC. Makes it easier from a configuration standpoint. So go back to the business case. We are making those, so when we make the 3 subnets, remember you'll have at least one domain controller in each. You'll have a router. Those domain controllers will also be DFS, and the rest you can decide where you want to put them, right? The easiest one is to do the root CA will be on the first domain controller that you make, so your first site. That's the easiest thing to do. So that's for your certificate services. Your Linux can sit in any site you want. It won't matter as much as long as you set up the connectivity using DNS for reachability purposes, right? And then, of course, the rest. So let's go through the project. Where's the business case here? So we have to use a router, DCs, GPOs, DFS, certificate, services, and then you'll have to pick one of those applications. Yeah. So back to that question, it'll be very similar for a lot of people. Very similar, yeah. Make sure when you're using the IP addresses on your servers, you refer to that Excel sheet, which is the subnet. The subnets, don't forget that. For the WDS image deployment server, does the Windows client must be able to deploy within any of the subnets, or can it be contained to the subnet with the MD? Yeah, no, it can be all in the same subnet. That's fine. It all can be in the same subnet, which is a lot easier too. So remember, if you're doing image deployment services, zero touch and must be joined to the domain. For deployment purposes, for workstation deployment, you'll need to use certificates, which means certificates. So if you look at it, because there are some dependencies here. So if you think about it, you're like, maybe the first thing we need to do is build a router. Second thing we need to do is start building our domain forest, our Active Directory forest. And then after that, looks like certificate comes next. Right? So if you look at the dependencies, you're like, oh, maybe certificate comes next. And so that will make things a lot easier if you figure out the dependencies, right? That'll make things easier for you. So if it was me and I'm deploying, the first thing I'm going to do is set up a router, set up my AD forest, make sure replication is all good. Then I'm going to jump into certificates. So you can jump between part 1 and part 2, like you can hop between them back and forth. It doesn't matter. Because it's your project, it's not my project. You're the one who's controlling everything, right? So you don't have to necessarily go through everything in part 1, then go through everything in part, like you don't have to follow it sequentially. You can hop between them back and forth. All right, questions for me regarding your design. Remember, 2 submissions, physical design and logical AD design, okay? 2 submissions for your network diagram. Okay, questions for me, anybody? Regarding your network, do you still like the brick? Yeah, because there's nothing else. That's why. I'd rather go to, what is that furniture store called on St. Albert Road? It's called The One, I think, or One, something like that. They have really nice but very expensive furniture. Ashley is also nice, but it's also expensive, right? So brick sits somewhere in between. They have good quality and reasonable prices. Although prices for furniture even went up, hey? So I'm not sure you guys looked at the housing index. Houses went up 10%. So the average family house, a single family home went up from 421,000 to 461,000. So that's 10%, like 9.8, but look, let's round it up, say 10%. Apartments went up 13%. So so everything else went up, including furniture. Well, furniture also went up because so when I went to a furniture store, I said, "What happened to your furniture? All of a sudden, everything doubled. Like, what's going on?" So the sales guy, tells me because the again, that's what he's telling me, so I don't know. He said the federal government put a tax on new furniture. There's some sort of a tax on new furniture, and I'm like, "Oh, okay." I was like, "How much does that tax then?" That really for you to double everything up, like how expensive is that tax? Like it's not 100% tax. I would assume it's not. Like why are you doubling things up like that? It's just insane. Inflation is real, folks. Inflation is real.